Who invented Coca-Cola and when? Why does the $100 bill feature Benjamin Franklin, who was never President of the United States? How many billion burgers are eaten each year in the United States? When and under what circumstances did the original teddy bears appear? How many tons of the U.S. gold reserve is stored in facilities like Fort Knox? All this and much more in our video Top 100 Plus Facts About USA. The U.S. Constitution is the oldest existing state statute, which was formed in 1787 at the Philadelphia Convention. The Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4, 1776, declaring that the 13 American colonies consider themselves independent states and are no longer part of the British Empire. Delaware was the first state to ratify the federal Constitution and became part of the United States of America on December 7, 1787. The first capital of the United States was the city of Philadelphia from September 1774 to December 1776, and from 1800 to the present day, the capital of the United States of America is Washington, D.C., although in the period from 1788 to 1790, New York was the capital for 2 years. Since November 1, 1800, the White House has been the home and workplace of all U.S. presidents except George Washington. It was in the United States that the concept of president was introduced during the preparation of the adoption of the Constitution in 1787, and in 1789 George Washington became the first president of a state in the world. On the day of the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, two of its authors, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, who were the second and third presidents of the United States, died at once on the same day, but on the 55th anniversary, the fifth president of the United States, James Monroe, died. Abraham Lincoln was the tallest president of the United States at 6 feet 4 inches, 193 centimeters. The national anthem of the United States was written by Francis Scott Key during the War of 1812 after he witnessed the bombardment of Fort McHenry. The flag of the United States was first made by seamstress Betsy Ross in 1776 at the request of George Washington. Since then, the flag has changed its design 27 times. The last time was when Alaska and Hawaii became states. The U.S. Constitution is the shortest written constitution in the world, only 7 articles and 27 amendments to it, so it does not exceed 8,000 words. The first U.S. Census in 1790 showed that the country's population was almost 4 million people, of whom about 1 in 5 identified themselves as black. Today, the population is over 330 million people. The stars on the U.S. flag represent the number of states, 50, that make up the country, and the stripes represent the 13 colonies that formed its foundation. As for the colors, they were also chosen for a reason. The red color symbolizes endurance and courage, the blue color symbolizes diligence and vigilance, and the white color symbolizes purity and innocence. In the 19th century, when United States banknotes first became popular, different colors were used on the banknotes. However, in 1862, it became necessary to distinguish dollars from other monetary units, and it was decided to print them with green ink. This decision was perceived as practical, as the green color was difficult to counterfeit at the time due to the technical limitations of printing houses. Since then, green has become a symbol of the U.S. dollar, and U.S. bills still have a distinctive green hue. The largest U.S. bill is the $100 bill. Although larger denominations, up to $100,000 on a single piece of paper, were issued at one time, they were used only for accounts between banking institutions. The $100 bill depicts Benjamin Franklin, a man who never became president of the United States. Franklin is one of the founding fathers of the American nation. Thanks to his authority, he was the only one whose signature appears on all 3 major documents of American statehood: the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Treaty of Versailles in 1783. The United States has the world's largest gold reserve, which is approximately 8,000 tons. October 28, 1886, the Statue of Liberty was unveiled in New York. It was a gift from French citizens to mark the centennial of the American Revolution. It is a U.S. national monument, a symbol of freedom, democracy, and justice. The statue is one of the most recognizable landmarks in the world. As she is also called, is 305 feet, 93 meters, tall with her pedestal. The highest temperature officially recorded in the United States was 134 degrees Fahrenheit or 56.7 degrees Celsius in Death Valley, California, on July 10, 1913. The lowest temperature officially recorded in the United States was -79.8 degrees Fahrenheit or -62.1 degrees Celsius in Prospect Creek, Alaska, on January 23, 1971. The first skyscraper in the world is considered to be the Home Insurance Building, built in Chicago in 1885, which was 10 stories high. Harvard University is the oldest university in the United States. It was founded in 1636. The indigenous people of this region, the Indians, could not obtain American citizenship until the 1920s. Americans send and receive nearly 167 billion letters, postcards, and postal orders each year. The business card of the most famous gangster in American history, Al Capone, stated that he was a furniture salesman. The criminal ended up behind bars not for robbery and murder, but for tax arrears. It rarely rains in California, and once it did not rain in the state for 2 years. According to statistics, every 8th American has worked at least a few days in a McDonald's restaurant. About 20 million Americans live in mobile homes, unable to buy a proper home. The most popular sport in America is American football. It has a special significance in American sports, especially during the Thanksgiving holiday. This holiday, which is celebrated on the 4th Thursday of November, has become a traditional time for large family gatherings and watching American football matches together. In 1971, the world's first email was sent in the United States. This historic moment was made possible by the invention of Raymond Tomlinson, an engineer and programmer. The world's first email contained the following message: Cordy Wyup. New Amsterdam was the original name of New York City. The fact is that New Amsterdam was founded in 1625 by immigrants from the Netherlands. In 1664, the city was captured by the British and renamed in honor of the Duke of York, the initiator of the capture. The American film industry is the oldest and most profitable in the world. Famous studios such as Warner Brothers, Universal, and Paramount have become symbols of world cinema. Hollywood produces about 800 films a year, making it the world's movie capital. The United States of America has the longest international border on the planet, which separates it from its neighboring country, Canada. This border stretches for more than 8,800 kilometers. The Empire State Building in New York City was the tallest building in the world from 1931 to 1971, with 102 floors. The building has a roof height of 1,250 feet (380 meters), and its total height, including the antenna, is 1,454 feet (443.2 meters). Mount Waiale in Hawaii is considered the wettest place in the country, with an average of about 450 inches of precipitation per year. The deadliest aviation disaster that ever happened to U.S. citizens was the collision of two Boeing 747s on an airport runway in 1977, known as the Tenerife Airport disaster. More than 580 people died when the two planes burst into flames. The Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. is the largest library in the world in terms of shelf space and number of books. The American Space Agency NASA was created in 1958, and the first man set foot on the moon only 11 years later, when Neil Armstrong stepped on the surface of the moon in 1969. Fortune cookies were invented in California by either Makoto Hagiwara or David Young in the early 20th century. The United States is a country with a record number of prisoners. By 2012, there were 730 convicted criminals for every 100,000 Americans. The United States has won more Nobel Prizes than any other country. More than 350 Americans have been awarded since 1901 in the fields of chemistry, literature, peace, physics, physiology, medicine, and economics. The official nickname of Texas is the Lone Star State. This is a reminder of Texas as a former independent republic and the state's struggle for independence from Mexico. The famous Kilauea volcano in Hawaii has been erupting continuously since 1983, making it the longest eruption in the history of the volcano. There are 3 towns in the United States named Santa Claus, and in Michigan there is a place for a town called Hell. In Montana, there are 3 times more cows and bulls than people. In some parts of the United States, the sale of condoms is prohibited. Disneyland is a popular and highly profitable stylistic amusement park of the Walt Disney Company in Anaheim, USA, California. It was opened in 1955, becoming the embodiment of Walt Disney's idea of a park that would recreate the world of cartoons and fairy tales, where everyone, both adults and children, would be interested. Theme parks really took off in the United States after the opening of Magic Kingdom Park near Orlando, Florida in October 1971, which is also owned and operated by Walt Disney and remains the most visited resort in the world today. There are more than 4,500 colleges and universities in the United States, including many of the world's most renowned institutions, such as MIT, Stanford, Harvard, and Columbia universities. The Grand Canyon, one of the deepest in the world, stretches for 277 river miles and reaches more than a mile deep, making it one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Within the canyon, the Colorado River flows at speeds of up to 15 miles per hour. 2 of the largest man-made disasters in American history were the Galveston hurricane of 1900 and Hurricane Katrina in 2005. There are more than 100 active volcanoes in Alaska, which are part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, including Mount Katmai, which erupted in the most powerful explosion of the 20th century in 1912. The first public zoo in the United States opened in Philadelphia in 1874 after Andrew Erkenbrecher created a collection of animals for exhibition. The Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco was built over 4 years and was completed in 1937. The cost of its construction was $35 million. The sculpture on Mount Rushmore in South Dakota contains 60-foot heads of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. The highest point in the United States is Denali, Mount McKinley, in Alaska, which reaches 20,310 feet (6,190 meters) above sea level. Baseball is a popular American game that evolved from the old bat and ball games already played in England by the mid-18th century. There are more than 4 million miles of highways in the United States, enough to circle the Earth more than 160 times. The first paved street in the United States was paved in Philadelphia in 1707. The hot dog was introduced to America in the late 19th century by German immigrants who brought with them traditional German sausages. As of 2019, the United States is home to more than 330 million people, making it the third most populous country in the world after China and India. The United States has the largest economy in the world with a GDP of over $20 trillion. The United States has won more gold and overall medals than any other country at the Summer Olympics and has also won the most medals at the Winter Olympics. Americans consume hundreds of millions of servings of turkey, pumpkin pie, mashed potatoes, stuffing, and green beans during the Thanksgiving holiday feast. Charlie Brown and Snoopy were created by the American cartoonist Charles M. Schulz, who was from Minneapolis and published the Peanuts comic strip for 50 years. The U.S. interstate highway system is named after President Eisenhower and is the second longest highway network in the world, covering more than 47,000 miles, 75,639 kilometers. Times Square in New York City is named after the first newspaper, the New York Times, which moved its operations to this location in 1904. Today, Times Square is known for its New Year's Eve ball drop and billboards. Coca-Cola was created by pharmacist John Stith Pemberton in 1886 and was first sold as a patent medicine, marketed as a brain tonic and headache reliever. The tallest bridge in the United States is the Royal Gorge Bridge, which spans a quarter-mile across the Arkansas River in Colorado. It hangs over the river at a height of 955 feet. The Philadelphia cheese steak sandwich originated in Philadelphia. Many restaurants in the city use thinly sliced beef steaks that are quickly grilled and served on steak rolls. Joe DiMaggio had a record 56-game hitting streak while playing baseball for the New York Yankees in 1941, a record that has not been broken in Major League Baseball to this day. More than 4 million people visit Las Vegas each year to visit its hotels, casinos, restaurants, and leisure attractions. The Arch of St. Louis is a 630-foot monument in Missouri that was completed in 1965 after approximately 3 years of construction work. The famous Hollywood sign, standing on the slope of Mount Lee, was created in 1923 to advertise a housing complex called Hollywoodland. Louisiana is the only state in the United States where continental civil law, derived from Roman law, is generally applicable, while Anglo-Saxon common law, based on precedent, has penetrated only to a very limited extent. The Mall of America is located near Minneapolis, Minnesota, and is the largest shopping center in the United States with a total floor area of over 4 million square feet. Yellowstone National Park, founded in 1872, is considered to be the first national park in the world created by the U.S. government. The first organized baseball league, called the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, consisted of 10 original teams based in New York City in 1857. Hawaii and Arizona are the only two states that do not switch to daylight saving time, instead living on standard time all year round without setting their clocks forward or backward for the summer. American inventor Thomas Edison holds more than 1,000 patents, earning him the nickname the Wizard of Menlo Park. He is known for inventing the light bulb, the phonograph, and the movie camera. The Mall of America has over 520 stores, 50 restaurants, and amusement park rides, including the giant Central roller coaster, which is 3,300 feet long and once held the record for the longest roller coaster indoors. The original teddy bears were created in 1902, inspired by a cartoon drawing of President Theodore Teddy Roosevelt on a hunting trip, refusing to shoot a captive bear. America experiences more tornadoes than any other country, with an average of about 1,200 tornadoes per year. The New York City subway system opened in 1904 and now has 469 operating stations, the largest rapid transit system in the world by number of stations. The largest airport in the United States is currently Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with an area of more than 4.9 million square feet. The largest man-made reservoir in the United States is Lake Mead, which can hold more than 28 million acres of water, providing resources to cities such as Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and San Diego. It was created by the Hoover Dam. The busiest train station in the United States is Penn Station in New York City, which opened in 1910 and serves more than 650,000 passengers a day in all directions. Henry Ford's invention of the assembly line and mechanical refrigeration catalyzed mass production, increasing productivity and lowering costs, making the first American products affordable for American families. The United States has more than 120,000 kilometers of railroad tracks, more than twice as many as China, which has the world's second largest number of railroads. The United States has more than 250 distinct wine grape varieties grown in 4,500 wineries that produce more than 23 million gallons of wine annually, making it the fourth largest wine producer after Italy, France, and Spain. The 3 Mile Island accident was a partial meltdown of nuclear fuel at a power plant in Pennsylvania in 1979, which was the worst incident in the history of U.S. nuclear power, although the radiation leakage was minimal and localized. Since 1896, the United States has won more than 2,400 Olympic medals, including more than 1,000 gold medals. The 129 medals make Michael Phelps the most decorated Olympian in history, both as a person and as a country. The Erie Canal was opened in 1825 at a cost of $7 million. The 363-mile-long canal reduced shipping costs by 95%, making New York City the busiest port in North America. There are 3 cities in the United States with metropolitan areas of more than 10 million people: New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, in a country where more than 330 million people live in 50 states. For comparison, India has 1.4 billion people living in 29 states and territories. More than 50% of the world's millionaires live in the United States, which translates to more than 20 million millionaires who call the United States home. The first successful airplane flight took place on December 17, 1903, near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, when the Wright brothers were able to fly their Wright Flyer for 59 seconds, covering 850 feet. The United States has more than 4,000 metric tons of gold reserve stored in facilities such as Fort Knox, making it the largest known gold reserve in the world, likely worth more than $200 billion. The United States has more than 130,000 public and private schools, with more than 50 million students enrolled each year, ranging from elementary school to higher education. With more than 10 million visitors annually, Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park in the U.S. In terms of size, Wrangell St. Elias National Park in Alaska is the largest national park in the United States, covering more than 8 million acres. Despite the fact that the United States makes up only about 4% of the world's total population, it accounts for more than 30% of the world's GDP, making it the richest country on Earth. The national animal of the United States is the bison, and the national bird is the bald eagle, which are the official symbols of the country. California has hosted both the Winter and Summer Olympic Games. Moreover, Los Angeles hosted the Summer Games twice, 1932 and 1984, and Olympic Valley hosted the 1960 Winter Olympics. As of today, 322 languages are spoken in the United States, 24 of which are spoken in all states and the District of Columbia. The largest number of languages is spoken in California, 207, and the smallest, in Wyoming, 56. The United States has more televisions than the United Kingdom and more people with Norwegian ancestry than the population of Norway. There are 2 pets for every 3 Americans, and the United States spends more money on pets than Germany spends on defense. Despite the large population of the world, even the poorest 10% of U.S. citizens are still richer than 68% of the rest of the world. A funny fact is that the Americans managed to buy Alaska from Russia for only $7.2 million in gold. The territory of 1,519,000 square kilometers was acquired, only $4.74 per square kilometer. And the fact that in less than 30 years, a gold rush began here, during which about 1,000 tons of gold were mined, adds fuel to the fire. The United States has the strongest army on the planet. This is not surprising since $1 out of $5 paid in taxes goes to defense. For example, the U.S. Navy has the largest number of aircraft carriers, with as many as 12 in service as of 2016. By comparison, the UK has 3, Italy has 2, and France, India, Russia, China, Spain, Brazil, and Thailand have only 1 each. It has long been no secret that more than a third of Americans are obese. The average person in the United States eats more than 35 tons of food in a lifetime. In addition, 45 kilograms of chocolate is eaten every second in the United States, more than 40 hectares of pizza a day, and more than 8 billion chickens a year. In the United States, many people live on credit. Formally, if you have $10 in your wallet and no debts, you are richer than 25% of Americans. The United States does not have an official language. The majority of the population uses the American version of English as the official language at the level of some states, but it is not at the federal level. The second most popular language is Spanish. Nebraska law allows anyone to purchase an admiral's license for a certain amount of money, which, in turn, allows them to operate a real fleet in the state. But there is a caveat: Nebraska is landlocked. The Pentagon has twice as many restrooms as it really needs, but this has nothing to do with conspiracy theories. The fact is that at the time of its construction, and this is the period of the Second World War, the toilets were separated for blacks and whites. In some states of America, it is allowed to grow cannabis at home in small quantities. It can be used only for personal use for medicinal purposes. However, this law does not apply throughout the United States. In 1929, a very interesting and extraordinary event took place. The first nudist organization was founded in the United States of America. Interestingly, the founders and, accordingly, the first members were 3 men. The first film in the United States was shown in 1894 in New York City, using a kinescope invented by Thomas Edison. More than 99% of all Americans own at least 1 car per family, many of them even have more than 1. Only a small proportion of Americans, less than 1%, do not own a car at all. You can't buy a kid's surprise in the United States. In the United States, it is simply impossible to buy this children's product because of a law passed in 1938. It prohibits putting inedible objects in food. Mauna Kea is the tallest mountain on Earth, measured from the base to the top. Its total height, from the base on the ocean floor to the top, is 10,203 meters, of which only 4,205 meters is above water. The base of the mountain is about 6,000 meters below the Pacific Ocean level. The total height of Mauna Kea is 1,355 meters higher than the height of Mount Everest measured from sea level. Crater Lake is a caldera lake in the U.S. state of Oregon. It is the main attraction of Crater Lake National Park, famous for its blue color and water clarity. The lake partially fills a 2,148-foot (655 m) deep caldera that was formed approximately 7,700 plus or minus 150 years ago as a result of the collapse of Mount Mazama volcano. At 1949 feet (594 meters) deep, it is the deepest lake in the United States. Gerald Rudolph Ford, born Leslie Lynch King, is an American politician, the 38th President of the United States, 1974 to 1977, the only U.S. president to take office without a vote, former leader of the Republican Party in the U.S. House of Representatives, 40th Vice President of the United States, 1973 to 1974. He took the presidency after Richard Nixon resigned from office, and was the only person in history to hold the offices of President and Vice President simultaneously. Every 7th American has more than 10 credit cards. St. Augustine is a city in the United States, the administrative center of St. Johns County, Florida. The city is considered the oldest European-founded settlement in the continental United States, 42 years before the English founded their first settlement, Jamestown, in North America, and 55 years after the first Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. More than 50 billion burgers are eaten every year in the United States. This makes the burger the most favorite dish of Americans. At 16, Americans will have the right to drive a car, at 18, the right to vote, and only at 21 have the right to buy alcohol. Iowa is home to one of the country's largest cereal plants and the largest popcorn processing plant. The phrase Uncle Sam was coined in 1813 during the Second Anglo-American War. Samuel Wilson, a wealthy slaughterhouse owner from Troy, New York, sent his products to the front for American soldiers, and the letters U.S. were emblazoned on the cans. The old Irish watchman who received the goods interpreted the inscription as his Uncle Sam. America is considered the birthplace of such popular music genres as rock, jazz, blues, and hip-hop. The founding fathers of the United States wrote the Declaration of Independence on hemp paper. Every 8th family in the United States was created thanks to an online acquaintance. There are many strange laws in the United States that must be observed. For example, in Ohio it is illegal to buy corn flakes on Sunday, in Nevada you cannot kiss bearded men, in Idaho you cannot fish on a camel, and in Texas you cannot shoot a bison with a rifle from the second floor of a hotel. Some popular American snacks invented at home include potato chips, Saratoga Springs, New York, 1853, chocolate chip cookies, Whitman, Massachusetts, 1938, and popcorn, thousands of years ago. The United States is the only developed country in the world that does not provide its citizens with free medical care. A study by Harvard researchers has shown that nearly 45,000 Americans die every year due to lack of money for health insurance. There is no centralized control over school education in the United States. There are no requirements for teacher qualifications, no teaching standards, and no approved textbooks. State and municipal governments, as well as parental committees, regulate children's education. The area of the smallest of the 50 American states, Rhode Island, is about 4,000 square kilometers. At the same time, the largest state, Alaska, stretches over 1.7 million square kilometers. According to statistics, Americans with a college degree earn an average of $1 million more in their lifetime than their less educated counterparts.